Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Senate is set to convene today as an impeachment court for the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. What will this mean for foreign investors? Bob Herrera Lim, Managing Director of Teneo, joins us live. The farm gate price of palay rises to nearly 30% in April year-on-year as the Department of Agriculture warns million-peso fines to rice retailers, traders, and importers who do not comply with the price ceiling on imported rice. Engineer Rosendo So, chairman of SINAG, joins us live. And a potential increase in fuel prices takes effect tomorrow, Tuesday. Before we begin, let's check in on the Philippine peso this morning. The local unit has recovered after falling to its lowest on Friday. The peso opens at 61.69 to the dollar, slightly stronger from Friday's close of 61.721 against the greenback. Since the start of the year, the peso has depreciated by 4.75% or around 2 pesos and 93 centavos. Traders say the peso continues to be pressured by higher dollar demand, supported by rising oil prices and stronger U.S. retail data. Mike Ricafort of RCBC adds that local political turmoil also weigh on the peso. Tensions intensified last week when Senator Bato de la Rosa resurfaced to cast a decisive vote on a leadership coup. And hours after chaos erupted in the upper chamber, de la Rosa has managed to slip out of the Senate, evading an ICC arrest warrant against him. The Senate will convene today as an impeachment court for the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano has ordered senator judges to be present at the session hall at 3 p.m. today, wearing their robes. Cayetano reiterated this in a Facebook Live on Saturday.
Tayo bilang impeachment court. So ulitin ko lang po walang delay, propaganda lang at paninira sa bagong majority na yung impeachment ang main reason na pagpapalit.
Recall that the Vice President was indicted on 4 charges. Article 1 centers on her alleged misuse of confidential funds. Article 2 cites the VP's alleged unexplained wealth and discrepancies between her bank records and Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, or SALN. Article 3 is about supposed monetary gifts to education officials during Duterte's time as DepEd Secretary. While Article 4 states Duterte's alleged threats against President Marcos, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, and former Speaker Martin Romualdez. House prosecutors have already divided the tasks for the 4 articles of impeachment, and they will meet at 10 a.m. today to discuss whether to make a formal appearance at the Senate, given that no invitation has been sent out yet. Some prosecutors have an appeal to the senator judges.
That they will do their job impartially. Kasi yun naman talaga ang nakalagay, even sa rules nila. While sitting as senator judges, they should exercise political neutrality.
Ako naman naniniwala sa ating mga kagalang-galang na senador na sana top din po nila ang kanilang oath of office bilang senator judges. Pero napakalaking bagay po talaga yung media at yung taong bayan sa pagsusubaybay po nitong impeachment proceeding.
The Philippines slipped 4 places in this year's Chandler Good Government Index, ranking 59th out of 133 countries. The country scored lower in key areas such as leadership, foresight, global influence, and reputation. The Philippines posted a score of 0.533 in the 2026 index, slightly higher than last year's score, but still not enough to prevent a drop in ranking. Singapore topped the list, followed by Norway, Denmark, Finland, and Sweden. Analysts said the decline suggests that government reforms have yet to produce lasting improvements for many Filipinos. Action for Economic Reforms Coordinator Filomeno Santa Ana III also linked the lower ranking to corruption issues, policy inconsistencies, rising debt, and slowing growth. Meantime, government infrastructure spending fell by 48% in March to 59.1 billion pesos. The Budget Department attributed the decline to slower project disbursements, stricter billing validation, and the impact of corruption issues involving public projects. Officials, however, expect the infrastructure spend to recover in the second quarter. And joining us is Bob Herrera Lim, the Managing Director at Ateneo. It's good having you back, Bob. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kathy.
All right, so referencing here your May 12 report, I asked over the weekend whether you had a more recent one given the series of developments, and you said no, didn't chase the headlines. For the investor trying to make sense of it all, Bob, how do you parse what's noise from news at this stage?
Okay, Kathy. So first of all, I'd like to make a point that investors don't take sides politically, right? So our views are based on the two or three things that investors care about. One is political stability, the second is policy stability, and the third is the ability to implement what is needed. So over the past 2 weeks, we've seen all these impeachment news. We saw the drama at the Senate. So for investors, it's a negative in the sense that the noise distracts from what is really important, right? Dealing with the fuel crisis, dealing with the problems in agriculture, dealing with the long-term challenges that the country face. So, all the drama at the Senate, as I said, we didn't chase headlines because ultimately at the end of the day, the question is, what does it mean for investors? And what it means is we have very inefficient, immature institutions, because in any functioning democracy, that question of the validity of the warrant, the process, etc., would have been settled legally. It would have been done through the courts, and investors would have been able to see with clarity what the ideas or principles were. Instead, what they saw was a senator running up the stairs, gunshots in the Senate, the lack of just simple institutional clarity about how to process political differences.
Right, to your point about the
that's what we
senator
saw.
running up to the stairs, Bato de la Rosa, now labeled by the Office of the Solicitor General a fugitive. And this after the series of events leading to that gunfire at the Senate last week. So how does this ICC drama impact the impeachment narrative around VP Sara? Does Senator Bato's predicament strengthen or complicate the Duterte camp's leverage over the Senate?
It complicates everything because then the Senate becomes purely a political process, right? So whatever happens in the Senate, if people see it as a political process, if Sara is convicted, found guilty, the Sara supporters will say this was purely political, etc. Bato was taken out, etc., etc. Now, if Sara is not convicted or let free, the people who do not like Sara will say she was acquitted because of politics as well, because there are 13, 14, 15 senators who value the Duterte vote more than what is important, which is accountability. So all of this is negative in the sense that a process that is meant at least to have some political and legal significance is now degenerating into a purely political process.
Well, pulling in the Marcos camp, you describe this impeachment as another peak in a war of political attrition between the Marcos and Duterte camps. So what, in your view, is the real endgame, you think, for each side in this confrontation?
Okay. So obviously the Marcos and Duterte families had a falling out, right? Last year or two. So, and then former President Duterte was exiled to The Hague, which I think, given the family of the Duterte family, was something they do not like, something they hate that the Marcos administration did. So there is a sense, a question of, will there be political payback if the Dutertes win? And for the Marcoses, therefore, the Dutertes winning becomes a non-acceptable outcome. And I think that's the big challenge for us is, if politics has degenerated to this, a war between two families, right? Like Romeo versus Juliet, but I doubt there's any romantic component to it. Then what happens next for the Philippines? What about governance? What about the problems that we face? What about policy continuity? These are all the things that matter to investors.
Let me pick up on the political payback you just mentioned there. The House vote, it overwhelmed 257 to 25. It's far above the one-third threshold. What do you think that margin reflects? Is it a genuine conviction against VP Sara, or more about House members hedging against her 2028 prospects?
Yes, it reflects our politics, right? If you are a House member, your district is local, you don't care as much about the Duterte politics if you're from some province where the Dutertes are not strong, right? On the other hand, if you're a senator and you're elected nationally, you care about the Duterte vote, which is 30, 35, 40% of the electorate. So the fact that the House was able to get that number means there was some, shall we say, mobilization of the administration in the House, and it was effective. It's less effective in the Senate because, again, the senators are elected nationally, and for them, they always look at one eye at the Mindanao vote and definitely the Duterte vote.
Well, given the differences in their imperatives, the Senate convenes as an impeachment court later today. So what is your level in confidence in saying that a conviction in the Senate is improbable?
It's improbable because the senators will look at Mindanao. If the sentiment in Mindanao is firmly for the Dutertes, which it likely will be, then a senator will not throw away 35 to 40% of the vote, right? They will look and say, if I vote against Duterte and the narrative is I am anti-Duterte and 35% of the electorate says if Duterte is important to us, they won't throw that away. So I think that is why we are saying a conviction in the Senate is improbable.
So the tempo and tone, what is it going to look like in the next couple of hours, from the choice of rules to the admissibility of evidence, given that you're saying it's going to be improbable that a conviction will happen?
So for the next couple of weeks, probably it will be a lot of it will be procedure, getting things in order, just all the processes right. So the question is, the Senate is supposed to go on recess on the 5th of June, if I'm not mistaken, which means they won't have time for a trial until they come back in July. So the next question is, will they decide to have a trial even though the Senate is in recess? So we're looking first at this sort of procedural dynamic on how the process will flow. And then the next big question is going to be, what evidence will the Senate allow? And this is where the control of the Senate is very important, because obviously Sara's detractors will like all the shall we say, evidence they have put out there, so that it will inform or it will influence public opinion. On the other hand, the Duterte supporters will say, let us watch what is put out there because we don't want Sara destroyed publicly, even though she might be acquitted. So there's going to be a lot of politics. The first thing I tell people is, do not look at this as a legal process. It is a political process that is looking at 2028. So, don't look at it legally. Look at it politically.
All right. As a real objective, Bob, is really to erode VP Sara's aura of inevitability for 2028, and that it's not necessarily to secure a conviction. What does a successful erosion of that aura will look like in concrete terms, in terms of surveys, coalitions, and money flows?
There's a precedent for that, right? What happened to former Vice President Jojo Binay. So if for Sara's opponents, a successful process is where her popularity is confined to Mindanao. And big electorates in the Visayas and the North say, you know what, we'd like somebody else. So, we may not like Marcos, we may not like Duterte, we want somebody else. I think that is going to be the goal for the administration, to cap Sara's popularity in the Visayas and in the North. On the other hand, if you are Sara, what you want is basically to say, to have a sense of, oh, this is all politics. There really is no evidence against her, etc., or everyone does it. The corruption that is being charged against her. And for people to say, you're all the same, we'll just vote for the Dutertes because we like them, etc. So those are the two sort of narratives that could flow out of this. And whichever one flows out of this might determine who wins in 2028.
Okay, just as a final point, Bob, what then do you tell foreign investors, your clients, and how should they position, how do they see investing here in the Philippines between now and 2028?
Okay, again, going back to the caveat that they do not take sides, okay? So the Duterte takeover or a Duterte win in 2028 for many investors is less positive, because for the simple reason, one, it might trigger a political battle, the Dutertes going after the Marcoses, and then you have this politics again dominating everything. And I think there are really legitimate questions about Vice President Sara Duterte's capabilities as a national leader. Her father, President Duterte, had a long history of running Davao. He had knowledge of national institutions. The question is, does Sara have the same knowledge? So I think just on balance, a victory by the Dutertes will be seen negatively by foreign investors. Therefore, what they should watch out for are the surveys near the end of the year. If Sara is vulnerable to a competitive race, then a competitive race works, right? But if she's the overwhelming candidate, then that might lead foreign investors to say, we're going to stay out of the Philippines until it is clear who Vice President Sara Duterte is, what her priorities will be, whether she will go after the Marcoses, whether she will implement real changes that we need, because we have real challenges from everything from agriculture to industry to energy. And
so
that is really the thing that matters for the Filipinos,
so many
not
caveats
these
there and
politics.
ifs and conditions, so many more questions. But thank you for the insights, Bob Herrera Lim of Teneo. And you're watching Money Talks. A possible increase in fuel prices takes effect tomorrow, Tuesday. And palay prices rises by almost 30% year on year. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Another round of fuel price hikes looms this week as global oil markets remain jittery over continued tensions in the Middle East. An industry source told the Philippine Star gasoline prices could go up by 75 centavos to 1 peso and 25 centavos per liter. Diesel prices, meanwhile, may climb as much as 2 pesos and 50 centavos per liter. The estimates were based on 4 days of trading in the Mine of Platts, Singapore, a key pricing benchmark for petroleum products in the region. Overseas, a drone strike sparked a fire near a nuclear power plant in the UAE, while Saudi Arabia said it intercepted 3 drones entering from Iraqi airspace. The incidents come as U.S. President Donald Trump warned Iran to act fast after efforts to end the U.S.-Israeli conflict appeared to stall. The UAE said there were no injuries nor radioactive leaks, but described the attack as a dangerous escalation. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the clock is ticking for Iran as reports emerged that he may meet with top security advisors to discuss possible military options. Trump also held talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping last week, though no breakthrough was reported in efforts to ease the conflict. Global oil prices rise with Brent crude trading at $110 per barrel, up by 1.5%. West Texas Intermediate sits at $107 a barrel, up by nearly 2%. Inflation in the Philippines hit 7.2% in April, the highest in 3 years, with food inflation at 6.1%, rice at 13.7%, and corn at 21%. It is a perfect storm that SINAG warned about this on this program a month ago. They're now here. With us now is Chairman Rosendo So of SINAG, or the Sapahan ng Industriya Agrikultura, representing the entire agricultural value chain. It's good seeing you again, Chairman So. Welcome back to the program. Well, I believe we need to dial in and get Mr. So back on air. But first, let's check in on the markets and see how the peso is doing. Peso was open stronger, a bit stronger after Friday's record low close of 61.752. Well, the Nasdaq shed nearly 0.8%, with the Dow sliding 0.6%, and the S&P 500 falling over 0.5%. Asian markets are also in the red this Monday over renewed geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Both Australia's ASX 200 and Japan's Nikkei 225 have tumbled nearly 1%, and South Korea's Kospi has declined over 0.75%. U.S. markets fell last Friday, with some investors attributing the decline to simple de-risking and profit-taking after a powerful run. The Nasdaq tumbled 1.5%, S&P 500 slides 1.25%, and the Dow sheds 1%. Let's take a look at our own markets on this first trading day of the week. PSEI opens this Monday higher by about 0.25%, 5,991. The local bourse fell 0.6% last Friday, with analysts expecting a bearish bias to burden stocks this week. Japheth Tantiangco of PhilStocks Financial says tepid trading reflects weak investor confidence amid macroeconomic and political concerns. He adds that the deadlock over the Middle East conflict keeps investors on edge. As for the Philippine peso, as mentioned, it opens today at 61.69 to the dollar, slightly stronger from its weakest close last Friday at 61.721 against the greenback. And we'll be back after the break. You're watching Money Talks. Inflation in the Philippines hit 7.2% in April, the highest in 3 years, with food inflation at 6.1%, rice at 13.7%, and corn at 21%. It's the perfect storm that CNAG warned about on this program a month ago. They're now here. With us now again is Chairman Rosendo So of CNAG, or the Samahan Industriya ng Agrikultura, representing the entire agricultural value chain. It's good hearing from you, Chairman So. Welcome back to the program. I wanted to ask about the fertilizer spike. When we last spoke April 16, you said it had not yet hit farmers, but fuel already had. So what is the state of the second round effects of the Mideast conflict?
Yeah, so far, Kathy, the price of fertilizer has gone down a bit, no? From 3,000 retail to around 2,700 pesos. But it's still high, no? Before the war, it's around 1,600.
And that leads us to the gap, because you were concerned about the gap between farm gate and retail prices. With inflation now at 7.2 and food inflation at over 6%, has that gap widened further?
Yeah, the increase of the retail price went up because of the gasoline and diesel. The price before the war is around 40 pesos ang diesel. After March, it went up to around 100 to 120 per liter. And April, it went up to 150 and go down to around 120. Kaya yung retail price saka yung farm gate ang layo na presyo.
So
But
this is the furthest it's
of,
been, widest gap na po ito, no? Because the President has already issued EO 118. He imposed 50 peso per kilo price ceiling on imported rice. What do you make of 50 pesos? Do you think that's the right price, or is it too low to the point that it's going to hurt our local rice farmers?
So far, the 50 pesos will not hurt the price of our palay, because our palay is around 25 to 27 pesos. Last week, farm gate, it only went down around 2 pesos. So we don't think that it will really hurt the farmers.
But when you have the Department of Agriculture now threatening stiff fines and jail time for price cap violators, do you think that that is enough to stop profiteering, or are we going to need a far more aggressive enforcement mechanism?
Yeah, we think the price of 50 pesos is fair price for our local price and the imported one. The imported one is importing around average of 38 pesos landed cost. So the price of 50 is still high. Huh? They could still lower the 50 pesos to around 48 pesos.
Now, what about the VAT fix? Rosendo, you proposed last month fix the VAT collection at the old rate of 5 pesos and then apply the additional 10 pesos now being collected as a discount on fuel. Has the government listened to you on that?
They want to have a fuel subsidy to the farmers, but Ang problema, Cathy, is the movement of the government is very slow. No? So up to now, I don't think it reaches the farmers.
So ano po ang rekomendasyon ninyo sa gobyerno?
Yeah, we recommend maybe the excise tax should be given to the farmers already, and instead of giving the money to the farmers, lahat na lang, no? Prorata, ibaba na lang yung 6 pesos for diesel and 10 pesos for the gasoline.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that update. Chairman Rosendo So of CNAG. And that's a viral video showing the pontiff being taught the internet-famous 6-7 hand sign by young pilgrims visiting the Vatican. Pope Leo played along, repeating the gesture as the crowd erupted in cheers. The 6-7 trend started online through rapper Skrilla's song Doot Doot and has since taken on several meanings across social media. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a great day ahead.